All right, so I did go and look at this article. Thank you so much for that. I do appreciate when people respond back to my queries for evidence with something tangible. I will also note that I did see there's a little bit of mistakes in this particular reply because it was not 500,000 children who have been quote unquote lost. It's 32,000, which isn't great, believe me. And it's also not necessarily clear that these were children that were lost by the Biden administration. They were not managed properly through the process from border control to ICE to a refugee resettlement. Now, one has to look at this with a bit of subtlety. And again, there was a number that was higher, and that was 300,000 immigrants, but they were children, immigrant children, but they were in a bit of a different category in that they were never given a court date. There was no step there to essentially match them to the next step in the process that is required by law. And if you will notice, this post that you are responding to addresses that issue. When I said that the immigration system is broken, this is what I'm talking about. It's broken, right? Because one would also want to ask, why is it that you're going to have such an insanely complicated system for young people? Because the more steps there are in the process, the more likely they are to lose somebody, minor child that is unaccompanied. And the Biden administration's policy has been not to force these children out of the country because they are highly vulnerable. And I guess the idea there is to take them through a process to ensure if they're released in any kind of way that it is through some kind of assessment of their needs. Now, I did see that there are Republicans who are wanting to have hearings on this and have asked Bernie Sanders to schedule something to review this because there was a care facility that was not doing a very good job and they were actually potentially being abusive. Let me just explain something though. None of this is something Biden created. So what you need to also reckon with is this is a system that was in place before Biden was president, before Trump was president, before Obama was president, before Clinton was president. Shall I keep going? Because it's been this way for a long, long time. And what you are seeing is the result of a backward, nonsensical system that essentially is like a dog biting and chasing its own tail, because each person in the process is like, well, that's not my job. Well, that's not my job. Well, that's not my job. And when it comes to adults, okay, like maybe there's some case you could make for their own responsibility. Now, you also have to factor in the fact that they don't all speak English, even the adults. But it's even more important for young people. Now, how would legislation get changed? Congress changes legislation, all right? And every time that Biden would try to do something to help by signing an executive order, the Republicans would throw a fit. And they would go, oh, no, we have to protest this because you didn't involve Congress. But when you involve Congress, they just use that as a political football. There was a bipartisan agreement to try to address some of these issues. In fact, it gave conservatives and MAGA much more than even I was comfortable with, because there was no discussion of what you're pointing to here with the kind of messed up nature of the system. And what I am pointing to you, because you are right on the numbers, right? With the exception that some of the numbers are a little less high when it comes to young adults or minor children who are unaccompanied not getting court dates. And it is awful if any child is quote unquote lost in the system because they're extremely vulnerable, and we already see that there were abuses. But if you have an extremely big, complicated system that is very resistant to change, in part because you have a party that enjoys complaining about the problem, Republicans, instead of fixing it. And every time someone tries to make an honest effort to do something about it, to make it somewhat better, they get told how they're terrible for wanting to do this. Or in fact, their leader, Trump, in this case, says, don't do anything about it. It's a bad deal. Excuse me? It is actually something on the table that people could do. If it's not great, fine. Pass it and fix it. That's also something Congress could do. But Congress has completely abandoned legislation in exchange for performative speeches that'll get them their next Fox News hit, particularly on the MAGA side. And I think the only reason that they get away with that is because they are such nihilists that they have taught people that government will always let you down. Like Ronald Reagan said, a government's small enough to drown in a bathtub. So they're trying to drown the government so that they can point to how messed up it is. It's like being pissed off that your little sister got a better toy than you did for Christmas. And when nobody's looking, you stamp on the toy. And then when she tries to play with it, you say, what a piece of trash Mom gave you. Look how it's all broken. But you don't mention that you're the little shit that stomped on it. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to get people like you not to believe in the efficacy of government, in its ability to do good for the people, if it is held to account by those people, and if it is filled with people who believe in legislation. And just to say, let's toss out the whole thing in heaven, an oligarchy, a complete oligarchy, like we're starting to already see the fruits of, with things like Elon Musk sending out a tweet that just stabs a bipartisan agreement to keep the budget at the same levels here at the national, federal level, just stabs it to death, or tries to, with an errant tweet or a couple of memes. He's rich, but he's no damn legislator. And if you're not going to do anything to solve the problem, don't sit there and keep pointing to it. Shut up and let the people who have an idea do it. Now, I'm not saying that that's you. I'm saying thank you for this. And please remember, this is happening in a context that's been going on for decades. So you cannot say this all happened in the last 4 years. I'm happy to continue the conversation. And if you have other things to add, please feel free.